Welcome to The Confident Networker with your host, Simone Douglas. In each insightful episode, she chats with one of the leading people from the BNI and business world.
So on today's episode of The Confident Networker, I am joined by the fabulous Tom Hendrick from Adelaide Speaking Training. Tom, thank you for coming along today.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. So maybe let's just start off with, tell us a little bit about your business and what it's all about.
I'm very excited. Adelaide Speaking Training Adelaide Speaking Training is a brand new business.
Mm-hmm.
I started on the 21st of May this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's significant to me because it's the day that I stopped being a lawyer, which is the first time that happened for about 6 years.
Wow.
So it's a bit of a change.
So why the leap of faith? We're in a global pandemic, we've got lockdowns, and being a lawyer seems reasonably safe. So what was the impetus for you to back yourself and go out into business on your own?
Well, Adelaide Speaking Training is something I've wanted to start since I was 15 years old.
Mm-hmm.
When I was 15, I did a 1 hour stand-up comedy show in front of my whole school, and I wanted to be a professional speaker. But I thought that was a bit of a tricky, maybe slightly dangerous, risky sort of thing to do as a profession. So I did the next most logical thing and became a tax lawyer. I was a tax lawyer at the ATO for a few years, and I was at the ATO in private for a few years. And when I was in private, I joined BNI because I didn't want to just do the work, but I wanted to find the work and bring it in and be a partner. And I swore on a stack of Bibles this time last year that I wanted to be a tax partner at that firm.
Yeah.
But then I also started running some pilot, public speaking training sessions for a group of friends. And they said, hey, it's really good and you're pretty good at this.
Yeah.
And I went, really? And I crunched the numbers and realized that it could be a business. This business I've wanted to do since I was 15 years old, which I didn't think was real or safe.
Was actually legit, yeah.
It was a real thing. And so I have BNI in particular thank for the business literacy that I've received, the opportunity to do these pilot sessions, just for a group of friends and some other people and their friends and family. Had some amazing feedback. I've seen other people succeed in business and it gave me the courage to do it myself. Yeah, cool. And so instead of being safe and sensible as a tax lawyer, so I do something stupid and become a professional speaker.
Fair call.
Yeah.
So how long have you been a BNI member for then? Obviously, you've just started the new business, but how long have you been in BNI?
August 2018, so about 3 years and a bit. And most of that, obviously, as a lawyer.
Yeah.
And now, gladly say, 3 months or so now as a speaker.
Yeah, nice one. For our listeners, Tom is a member of BNI Elite. They happen to be the #1 chapter in the region currently, and they meet on Thursday mornings at the lovely hour of 7 a.m. It's breakfast networking. Why is networking important to your business?
Because networking is basically essential to my business. It's brand new, and it wouldn't be where it is without testimonials that ripple out and then inquiries that come in and then being able to turn those into, for me, services. So one-on-one sessions or group training services. Yeah. And networking as opposed to just spontaneous net socializing, that just happens every now and again, is the real difference for me. So being able to rock up at 7 a.m. and that 7 a.m. attracts a lot of ambitious, people who try to make time in their day for things like that. Being in a room full of those people, telling them what I do and how they can help me, and likewise finding ways to help them, and getting a whole room full of reciprocity and inspiration and connections and working on projects together from time to time is what helps me fill the seats of my workshops, which is how I get paid. So. Your business is 3 months old. You can't have achieved that many of your goals already, can you? What are some of the goals that you have, or whether it's life goals or personal goals in the last 3 months that BNI has helped you tick off your bucket list? BNI has helped me tick off lots of things off my bucket list. It helped me fill the first 3 workshops that I've been running, and not entirely just with BNI members, but with BNI members and their contacts. Yeah. And then what it's also done is it's filled up my waiting list for the next 3 workshops that I will be running in September. So now I don't have to worry about where I'm going to find those people. They're already eager to knock on the door. Yeah. That's a huge success. It's also the biggest success that it's given me, though, was absolutely the courage to make the decision to leave a very safe, sensible job at a very chaotic time of the world, life. And have the confidence to know that I could step out and make it work. On my own. But it doesn't feel like you're on your own.
No, and that's why I love BNI. Is that, and I think you touched on it. It's really because it's structured networking, it's a process and a system, and I'm a bit systems orientated. So there's rules, and I like rules. But the other thing that I love about it is, like you said, motivated people are the people that get out of bed at 7 o'clock in the morning to go to a structured networking event. They're driven to be successful. They're invested in each other's success, and it really fires me up for the rest of the week. Like, there's nothing better. Who has been the most surprising person in terms of helping you in your chapter in the last 3 years? So it doesn't necessarily have to be with the current business, but what's your favourite moment where you just went, wow, that person really put themselves out for me, or they really, gave me a great piece of advice?
Surprising, that's a good word. So like unexpected, out of the woodwork, like serendipitous. Other fun things in my mental thesaurus. There's someone I want to give a shout out to.
Yep.
Her name's Kriti Shah from Stella Home Styling. She's a home stager, gets homes looking really good with furnishings before they're sold, by real estate agents on the open market. And you would have thought styling and communication, photos, words, fairly separate industries. Kriti, as one example, has been really extremely helpful for my business. I realised sitting down with her that she had a lot of things to communicate in her business, not only just online, like in words and videos and things like that as well, but on a more regular basis. She was quoting for jobs, and she was also pitching to real estate agents for their spring catalogues and things like that. And she asked me to help her with some presentations and with some also ongoing speaking training. So things like when you're closing a deal with someone, you're negotiating how much it's going to cost to style their house, especially when you know in the back of your mind that you can get them $80,000 more if it's styled and only costs you X many. You sort of like, well, now the price is as much as you're willing to trust us, kind of thing. And what would happen and this happens to lots of people, I don't want to go into Kriti's particular situation in much detail, but it was good that she could, I could help her in the sense that I could tell her a method, like if you're uncomfortable with conflict, and that's the reason why you're allowing you're accepting lower prices, then you need to identify that and then have a method to not flinch. So instead of jumping in, let them come in first, let them set out their logical train of thought, and then once that's open and exposed, you can make them realize that the amount of money that they think they need to spend is not enough for, they're making a small effort for a big return, and that's not how big returns are made. And likewise helping her with pitching and things. And I found that by being able to help her, she's been able to help me a lot in my business, because that was a testimonial from her that's rippled outwards to other people. And it was also working with someone like that, I realised that's a thing that I could provide as a service to lots of different industries, whether you're like a badge maker or someone who, produces other sort of services, offerings, web designers, graphic designers. It's a similar pitch. It's like, if you trust us, we can get you a big return, but it's how do you communicate in such a way that the trust is there to commit some payment towards these creative people.
When it comes to the clients that you work with, what is it that lights you up? What is that moment when you're working with them that you just go, this is why I do what I do? Can you give us an example of that? 2
definite indicators for when, which make me so happy. The first one is after we've done like a one-on-one session. Later on, usually that day, they've put it into practice in something like the quoting conversation or a team meeting or a presentation they've given. And sometimes the phone call that I get involves tears on the other side. And it's like, and then they might send me a message and it's a little screenshot of an email they've received. And it might be like, dear person, of all the people that we shopped around for, you were the most, most expensive, but the most trustworthy, and we believe in your process the most, and that's why we want to go with you. So they value themselves, they also value the person, pay the money, they want the big return, and they're committed to that because they understood and they felt empowered, edified, to make that sort of decision. And so I love that phone call where it's like, I did this, and then I was almost about to do this, but I did that instead. And so that kept me on track.
I love that. I think too, it's one of the things that becomes really important is being authentically yourself and discovering what that is. How often do you have clients that come into your workshops that are trying to be someone other than who they are, and you help them figure it out? Like, is that part of the journey, or do they just come in lost in general?
Absolutely, and that was the second thing I was going to mention about what dropped when it's when the penny drops in them, and so they've been like, oh, they've often before they come to me, they've dabbled in a little public speaking training themselves, looked up YouTube videos, they've tried, I need to be more like this person, but they haven't quite demystified the thing about that speaker that makes that work for that person. That why isn't it working for us? And then a lot of my structure is more like I'm trying to get people to, when they speak, to not get lost. So making sure that the way they speak is very visual for other people, and when the understood and the image is in the other person's head, then you progress to maybe actions and the more detailed oriented stuff before finishing on the final takeaway, like the some people would consider the summary answer. And when they follow a method like that, their own style naturally comes out. But it's just done in such a structure that is designed to help the listener not get lost along the way. The heads are nodding the whole way through, and that's the way that it's organised, rather than starting in one way and then going backwards, like starting with the speaker, what the speaker knows first, trying to start with what the listener knows first, but letting the speaker's style come through and not affect that.
Yeah, cool. What is the best piece of business advice you've ever been given?
Best piece of business advice I've ever received? It came from BNI as well, and I've heard it from so many people it's hard to identify it as one person. Yeah, as one person. But it's certainly not to sell to the room. And as a speaker, it's now become a keystone of a message that I tell other people, is that there's your audience, but then there's your audience's audience. It's a far bigger audience. And if I can explain something to you, you understand it. But it's more important that you can explain it back to me and you really understand it and you've tackled it. And if it's the way that you've spoken is in such a way that it can be on-delivered to other people and you want to tell that story to other people, that's when all of a sudden the calls out of the blue start coming in and the brand really takes off instead of shrinks. And so I use that as not only a public speaking technique to look through the audience to the audience's audience. How do I make this a thing worth rippling out? But also think about it from a business sense as well. Like I'm not trying to just get quick wins with people in this room, whether it's like the networking occasion I'm in or it's the BNI meeting. But it's like, how can I make such an impression or an understanding of this person that it ripples to another better conversation with this person and another decision maker in their business or their friend who might be able to find that extra work or project for me to work on.
That makes sense. If I could introduce you to anybody that could help you take your business to the very next level, who's the one person that you would love an introduction or a referral to have a cup of coffee with?
Oh, one person. One specific person. Well, a lot of people have said to me over and over again that they wish they learnt public speaking stuff at school. And it's like a teachable skill that we unfortunately never work in schools. I would love to be introduced to school principals. There's one person in particular. I went to Emmanuel College. His name's Kevin Richardson. But through him, there's also associations of schools, whether they're like Catholic schools or they're independent schools and that sort of thing. So to talk to individual principals, but also to talk through them to get to their more higher body organisations and try to get a one-to-many interaction in that sort of circle would be something I'd really love to do to help make public speaking in schools something that's easy, fun, and adds to their leadership and learning experience.
That makes sense.
And the schools as well.
So for the listeners out there, if any of you happen to be part of the Independent Schools Association, which is a bit like a union for independent schools, I'm sure Tom would be happy to have coffee to talk about some of the professional development he could run when you guys get together. Tom, thank you very much for joining me today.
Simone, this has been an absolute pleasure.
Well, for me too. Thanks very much.
Thank you for listening to The Confident Networker. You can find more episodes and information at bnian.com.au/podcast.